Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, an entitled lady demands I give my classic car to her son. When I refuse, she allows him to steal it from me. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Ever since I was a little boy, I have loved cars. I remember my dad and grandpa would always take me to car shows, particularly to look at older cars. My grandpa was really the one that got me into old cars, and I think that those memories with my grandpa gave me such a passion tied to old cars. I told my dad and grandpa that when I was old enough to get a job, I was going to save up and buy an old car to restore and fix it up. I had gotten my first job at 17 years old and started putting money away each paycheck. However, just a couple of years ago, I am now 24, my grandfather passed away, and in his will he ended up giving me his 1967 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. I was so emotional when I inherited his car. I was just a 20-ish-year-old kid who was still in college, still saving for my dream car, which was originally a 1972 Mustang. But now I had a beautiful car that was already restored and had been taken care of. At this point, I knew that I would use my saved up money to continue maintaining my new beloved car. So, just last year, I graduated college with my bachelor's and was finally moving out and living on my own. I had lived with my parents and then in the college dorm, so I was really excited to move into a rented condo and start my own life. And of course, I had my Camaro by my side. Immediately upon moving in, the people next door took an interest in my car. It was a beauty, and my grandpa did take really good care of it, so it was not unusual for people, especially car people, to stop and take a look at my car. As days and weeks passed, the mom would frequently stop and talk to me. At first I thought that she was just being friendly. Heck, I was a naive kid who did not know any better and could not see the red flags. Away, it becomes clear that she wanted something from me. During the summer, her son's birthday was coming up. When she brought this up to me, she then asked me if I would ever be willing to sell my car. Of course, I could see where this was already going and told her that no, I would not be willing to sell my car because I inherited it from my grandpa and it meant a lot to me. You know, not to be cheesy or anything, but it really did feel like this car was the last piece of my grandpa I had, and it was his baby as well, so I wanted to take care of it. My neighbor then scoffs a little and says something along the lines of how her son is a car lover and yada yada. I straight up told her, that's great, then he knows how hard it would be for me to sell it. After that, she did not have too much to say, so I thought I was done dealing with her for good. It turns out that was not the case. My condo had a garage, and most of the time this is where I parked my car. Each unit had one assigned parking spot plus their garage, since it was just across from my unit. One night, my ring alarm for the garage goes off. It was 3 or 4 in the morning, and it actually woke me up because I have it set up to get notifications on my phone. I did review the footage and I could see someone in a dark hoodie opening the door somehow and trying to break into the car, but when the alarm goes off, they take off running. I have no idea who it was at the time, and I honestly did not even expect it to be my Karen neighbor and her son. I filed a police report because I was scared that people were after my car, and what do you know, a few days later Karen the neighbor is actually caught trying to steal my car. I was just coming back from getting groceries, and because I stocked up, I had to make a couple of trips. I left my car right in front of my unit. My condo was facing towards the street with the door open because, well, you know, I was going to be right back to get the other groceries. Well, to my absolute surprise, when I came back, my car was zooming down the street. I know this sounds crazy, but it still did not occur to me that someone could be stealing my car. I thought the car took off by itself. Again, I also might be naive and stupid. Anyway, so I go racing after my car, and guess who is in the damn driver's seat? My neighbor's son. He saw it as an opportunity to try and steal it, however, he did not get far because he ended up going so fast that he lost control of the wheel and ended up crashing into a unit at the end of the street. In that moment, I can honestly say that I was heartbroken. I thought my grandpa's beautiful car was gone. I called 911 and so did several others of my neighbors, as well as the people's condo he hit, and he ended up getting arrested. He did try to leave the scene, but one of my neighbors is a badass and tackled him onto the ground while the police came. The mom, aka the one who was bothering me in the first place about selling it, tried acting like she had no idea what was going on. Obviously, I knew she was full of it, and it was funny because while the son was getting cuffed, he shouted at his mom, "You said I could do it, what the hell?" Anyway, the son ended up getting charged for Grand Theft Auto and ended up having to pay back the damage he had caused. I'm not sure how much the people got for their property getting hit, but I got enough back to repair damages and whatnot to the car. I will admit I was still pretty upset because there were a lot of original parts in the car that had to be replaced, but at least the crash was not bad enough to where it was completely totaled. I know that if my grandpa was watching, he knows it's not my fault either. As for the mom, I'm not really sure what happened to her, but she moved out and nobody has really seen her since. She did try throwing her son under the bus, so maybe she ran or she got charged with something. Either way, it never amazes me how entitled some people can get. And yeah guys, it seems like if you drive a nice car, especially an older one, you should be really aware of entitled people who might try to steal your car. I gotta say, thankfully here in Thailand, car or motorcycle theft is not really that common, so some people even leave the keys in their motorcycle or car, which is still something I would never do. Anyway, the next one is titled, "Two older ladies made my life hell." So I work in a regional grocery store chain as a cashier, and this morning I was ringing an old lady up. She was very pushy and demanding during her order, but I just ignored that since a lot of customers are like that. However, when I got to the end of her order, she asked what her total was and I read it to her, and she said she could not hear me. So I raised the volume of my voice a bit and she said she still could not hear me and actually started making fun of me for having a quiet voice. It's worth noting that I have a lung condition that makes it physically difficult and painful to raise my voice. So I tried one last time to raise my voice a bit more so that she could hear me, and it makes my voice come out sounding strained since it is physically painful for me to do so. And then she just kind of stops and stares at me for a second and then goes, "You know, I don't think you're supposed to talk to your customers like that, young lady." And the lady in line behind her, a middle-aged lady who just showed up right as this was happening, goes, "Yeah, that was super uncalled for. I did not like that. That was hostile." And I am legitimately super confused and startled because genuinely did not mean for it to come out that way and did not even think it came out that way at all. I did not yell or act snippy or anything, I just spoke up a bit louder in a genuine attempt to get her to hear me. And I tried to explain myself and apologize, basically, "I'm really sorry if that came across as rude, ma'am. I promise I didn't mean it that way. I have a problem with my lungs that makes raising my voice painful, and I really apologize if my tone sounded curt. I really didn't mean it." And she just looks at me and goes, "Oh gee, well I'm sorry for being alive. I mean, wow, sorry I bothered you, right?" Super sarcastically, and rolls her eyes at me, and the lady behind her backs her up, glaring daggers at me, going, "Yeah, no, that was not okay. That was really wrong. Seriously, what's your issue?" And the two of them keep ganging up on me and telling me off like that for a while and treating me like I had just slapped the older lady across the face or something. And I cannot help it and just start tearing up and crying right there. Only then do they both stop, and it's like they both suddenly realized they were talking to an actual human being with emotions because they both immediately backed off, started apologizing, promised not to tell my manager, and tried to reassure me. It's just... do people like those two forget they are talking to people when it comes to retail workers, or do they just not care until they have to see the consequences of what they say and do? And yeah guys, nowadays working in retail is definitely something I would not want to do anymore. It can be interesting for a while, but it seems like people have zero empathy nowadays, so I definitely wouldn't want to work there. Anyway, the next one is titled, "I guess we cannot fire you." When I sold cars, we had a really nice showroom with large glass windows, and one day I was tasked with moving a powerful V8 sports car. which was in the showroom. I was supposed to reverse the vehicle into position. However, the floor had just been mopped. I put the car in what I thought was reverse, manual transmission. When I started to let up the clutch, I felt the wheel slip, so I thought, oh, the floor is slippery, just give it a little bit more. So I give it a little bit more and the car launches forward into the large glass pan. Thank God it was a hardtop. When this happened, I freaked out, let go of the clutch and the car had enough power to break the glass pane. This was right before opening. The glass pane was massive, that extended maybe 20 feet wide and 20 feet tall. I'm not sure, it was huge. All of this right before opening on a Saturday. I get called into the GM office who asks me for the facts. I tell him what happened and he asks me if I'm okay with doing a breathalyzer, and I agree. I had not been drinking that morning or the day prior to I passed. He said, well, you're sober, so that's good. I go, yeah, I am. This was just a stupid, dumb mistake. And he goes, yeah, it was. I ask, so I'm fired? He laughs, you're too expensive to fire now. I ask, what do you mean? He goes, do you know how much it's going to cost me to replace that glass pane? I go, a lot I imagine. Yeah, probably more than the car you used to drive through with it. I go, oh wow. So I go, so I'm not fired? Oh hell no, I know you will never ever do that again from now on. You're in charge of moving cars inside the showroom, and now get back to work. And then I went back to work. I personally refused to move cars in the showroom for about a month or so, and eventually I started doing it again and did not have another accident. The next one is titled, Nope, we won't give you the contact info. Medium used to sell cars. My auto group had a policy that we don't give non-customer facing employees contact details and yes, even their company information. FYI, we have this policy because years ago, a customer went completely irate on two of our title clerks and it caused issues. Also, those people do not fully understand, nor do they have the time to understand all the aspects of the customer requests. They, who shall be referred to as admins, do very good work. So, a customer loses some important document that he needed for his vehicle. He then comes to me, his salesperson. I tell him, yeah, I can send that up. He goes, I know you're busy, let me do it for you. I said, I'm sorry, I cannot give you the admin's contact info. Why not? I explained that we have a rule against giving our non-customer facing employee contact information, that I will send up his request and we will work on it. He tells me, I'm a paying customer, I want to deal with those people directly. I go, I'm sorry sir, but I cannot let that happen. To which the customer says, let me speak to your manager. I said fine, I called up my sales manager, no answer, my GM is walking by, I run out and tell him. He goes sure, he comes in, gets the same story I've already given him and my GM says, I'll tell you what, I'll personally go to the admin and try to get this done for you. To which the customer said, I want their email address. To which my GM said, I'm sorry sir, but we do not give out non-customer facing employees contact info. Customer frustrated goes, well that's a stupid rule, who made that one up? My GM said, I'm the one that made that rule up. Customer sitting there, it's dawning on him, he has hit the top of the chain of command. So I'll just have to wait? My GM said. Yes, and trust me, I want you to have the best experience possible, so we will do what we can to fix this. FYI, the problem was the customer's 5-year-old son threw the folder with all the ownership documents into his fireplace, so it was not exactly our fault. In the end though, we got duplicates made. And the next one is titled, The Customer is King, remember that. My coworker has a very loud voice. She laughs loud, talks loud, and you can hear her from across the store. So this lady comes in and wants lobster claws. There's about 50 in the case and she is pulling the old, no, not that one, that one. Our view from behind and her view from the front are very different, so my coworker says let me come out front and you can show me what you're pointing to. Personally, I can barely see their body through the case and all the seafood piled in it, let alone which specific tiny thing they are pointing at. So she goes around and the woman is pointing, so coworker opens the case from the front and goes to grab the desired claw. The woman says, oh, what are these big cooked shrimp here? And starts picking them up with her bare hands, inspecting them and putting them back. My loud coworker says, you cannot touch the shrimp. Customer says, excuse me? Coworker repeats that we cannot let customers touch the seafood, and how would you like to come in and buy cooked shrimp and people have been touching it? She says, you yelled at me. "You cannot do that. I'm telling your manager and having you fired." We get a call later from our friendly customer service desk associate who says, "Some lady just said that coworker yelled at her and scared her because she was very loud. She also doesn't think that coworker should have scolded her." She told customer service that she accused me of touching the seafood, but I didn't. She was out of line. "Karen, I was standing right there. You 100% stuck your ungloved hands into our cooked shrimp and then threw them back into the pile." I had to throw away the whole front layer of shrimp because of this customer. Lying customer, I should say. Added to add that I just remembered that she even said, "There is no sign saying I cannot touch the shrimp." And the next one starts like this. I have not worked in retail for a really long time, and this story reckons back to my first job in retail. First, a little background. I worked in a very small family-owned store that sold live seafood, primarily lobsters. The store was in the northwest US, so we sometimes had some local seafood also. One time we had just gotten in a fresh shipment of Dungeness crab. Dungeness crab is delicious, but it does not last very long, so buying the crab alive is the best way to preserve freshness. The store had enormous saltwater tanks to keep the crab in, but to take them home, we would wrap them in newspaper. Did I mention that this was a long time ago? Crabs are pretty easy to handle if you know how, but if you are careless, they have claws that can feel like a pair of big vice grips. Crabs are helpless if you lay them on their back. To wrap them up, you simply lay them on their back next to the corner of the piece of newspaper and wrap the corner of the paper over the crab. The crab will fold its legs in because its vital organs are on the bottom. Once it has its legs folded in, you just wrap the sides of the newspaper over it from both sides and roll it up in the paper. To cook it, you just grab the outermost corner of the newspaper and hold it over the pot of boiling water, and the crab just unrolls and ends up in the pot. One day, this dad comes into the store with two sons who were both preteens, and the dad wanted to order some crabs. Occasionally, people who bought crab made an issue of whether the crabs had all of their legs. It's not uncommon to find a crab who is missing a leg or two. Since they were sold by the pound, most people did not care that much. However, this dad wanted to inspect the crabs I was giving him, so he came around behind the corner where I had laid them down on their backs on the table so I could weigh them. He evidently wanted to impress the boys that were with him because he picked one up to show it to the boys. I didn't know what his experience with crabs was, and plus I was just a kid myself, so I just let him handle the crab. The crab was almost able to get its pincher claw on the guy's hand, and he must have known how strong those little suckers are because he quickly put the crab back down. Unfortunately, this genius put the crab down on its legs. Crabs spend some of their time out of the water, so they can run pretty fast to keep away from gulls and other birds who love to eat them. So once this crab was on its legs, it took off running. It fell off the counter and landed on the floor. Still on its legs, it began running towards the darkest place it could see, which was under the big cooking pot we had for cooking the crabs. If it got under there, it would be very difficult to get it back, so I literally had to jump on it to grab it. I ended up getting my hand under the crab, but I had it too far under the crab, and the crab was able to reach the end of my fingers with its claws. As soon as it got a grip on my finger, it felt like someone was gripping my finger with vice grips, and it hurt worse than anything I had previously experienced in my brief 17 years of life. I also knew that crabs have two of these pinchers, and the crab was trying to grab me with its other claw, so I had to act fast. I was able to flop the crab back on the table on its back, but when I looked at my finger, I started to feel dizzy, and I knew I was about to pass out from the trauma. I know it was just my finger, but the pain was intense. I somehow managed to keep the crab from grabbing me with its other claw, and also to grab a knife out of the knife rack. I stabbed the crab right in the middle where I had learned its heart is, and as soon as the crab was stabbed, the pressure on my finger subsided, so I was able to get loose from the crab before I passed out. I was not actually conscious for the next part, but evidently the dad backed away and one of my coworkers wrapped up his crabs and he quickly exited the shop. When I came to, I was laying down on the floor of the office with my hand in a pan of cold water. Somehow, the owner of the store did not think to include a first aid kit as part of the essentials of running the business, and fortunately, one of my female coworkers had bandages in her purse, so I was able to at least stem the bleeding. The swelling was still pretty bad and my fingertip was shredded. That bozo left with 2 live crabs and 1 dead one. I only hope he tried to pick up one of the live ones himself, and sorry that the idiot wasn't the one who suffered in this story, but I only worked in retail for a few short years. This experience was enough to convince me to choose a non-retail career. And yeah guys, if you have any interesting stories to share of your work in retail, then please feel free to share them in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, I hope to see you again tomorrow.